Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Once again on a Monday with Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester looking back over all of the action in the British Basketball League this week. Let's go back to, obviously it's trophy action all the way through now. Let's go back to Thursday. London Lions 99, Newcastle Eagles 77. No Josh Ward-Hibbert, no Whitfield. Newcastle only 8 players, 6 frontline players, you would say, and yet there was not really a lot in this game in the first half. Neither team really able to get on top for long.
Yeah, London was short as well. I mean, London
Well,
was
yeah.
short.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't give all the London
London was short.
absentees. Yeah,
Yeah, they were short of Philip and they were short of
Decker, Morgan.
Matt Morgan, obviously.
Yeah,
Decker, I think, was a given for a while, but
yeah.
certainly Philip and Morgan are big. And then Taylor went down as well.
Mm.
But overall, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was, the two teams, kind of played each other relatively even. It wasn't kind of a question of London starters kind of coming out and then putting some distance between and then the bench giving it up. It was, it was pretty even throughout the game. Newcastle obviously started with the 3 guards because they really didn't have much options. Either that or play
Either that or 2
Oh,
centers.
and well, they did that on Friday night. For a little bit, they played the 3 bigs on Friday night together, but they didn't in this game. And to be fair, Kande came in the first half and he hasn't played much and made a shot and didn't disgrace himself in any way. Kind of helped them play and helped them manage a little bit in foul trouble when McGill got into foul trouble. And yeah, it was kind of intriguing. I mean, London were clearly playing to win the basketball game. And I talked about them the week before. What kind of efforts are they going to make to kind of compete in the trophy? Well, it's pretty clear now they're out to win it. No question, that's a shadow of that, which is good. At the end of the day, it's good for everybody. We're not going to have a situation like we had last year, happily. And I'm quite sure that's something to do with the fact that it's a 10,000 people in the stands at Birmingham in the final, as opposed to having to go to Glasgow 2 days before they play in Paris, which is what it was last year. So that's good. It might be the marketing around the trophy competition, everything. It's being built up. You can't have your top team taking a punt on it if it's being built up. And obviously, Bozic likes winning trophies. We know that.
Yeah.
So it's quite clear. Also with Newcastle's kind of injury report, particularly the one in relation to Ward Hibbert was kind of saying unspecified injury, needs rest until the end of January.
Yeah.
And we had a slight hamstring strain. He's out until the middle of February. You kind of thinking they're not really, they're not punting on the trophy, but they're not really that, fussed about it. Ultimately, they're not going to put their players' health at risk for it. So you did kind of think, oh well, this might be problematic for Newcastle, but they're quite a together group at the moment, and I hope they played hard. And to a certain degree, they ran out of steam, and it was actually London's bench that actually did for them at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, I said not much in the first half. To be honest, it was the same in the third quarter. A Caboza 3 did get them up 7 late in the third quarter, but Eagles had it down to 3 a minute into the fourth quarter, and then it was Morgan and Quealy hitting threes, a 10-1 run, which kind of broke the resistance.
Yeah, I mean, I think, firstly, it was two. You're right. It was 2-point game with 11 minutes to go. The last 2 minutes of the third quarter were big because Caboza hit a 3, and Newcastle couldn't score on what really was quite an experienced bench unit, and that bench unit actually helped London kind of extend their lead. Now, Bozic ran with that unit at the beginning of the fourth and immediately gave up a couple of baskets. And at the 9-minute mark, boom, timeout, and the guys are back in. The other guys are back in. So at that point, if Newcastle had been able to do that maybe at the end of the third quarter as well, maybe they get an extra minute or two's breathing space. Maybe it puts a little bit more pressure on London. But you're right, when Quealy made the 3, that's a big shot because he doesn't make many threes. And at that point, the size differential kind of wore Newcastle down. It wasn't so much the fact that the Newcastle guys were playing big minutes, I don't think, because McGill's done that his whole career. But I thought that just the amount of size on the court and the ability to get the ball down low and to have, a small forward being guarded by Austin was tough for Newcastle. And eventually London just kind of pulled away.
They scored 16 of the last 19 points, so it looked far more comfortable than it had been for 32 minutes, that's for sure. Nelson, 8 for 11, 20
Mm.
points and 7 assists. Morgan, 5 of 7, 20 points, 9 rebounds. Connor Morgan, obviously, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Olasheni, 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. They were 36 of 60 and 10 of 18 from 3, London.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought that the kind of the measure of that Newcastle were competitive was that Connor Morgan played 30 minutes,
Mm,
and Luke Nelson, albeit without Jordan Taylor, played like 29 minutes. When Bozic doesn't play those guys, they don't normally, nobody on that team normally plays over 25, maybe Matt Morgan a little bit if
mm,
they, in circumstances. But in British basketball league games, we haven't seen that kind of number being played by anybody. And obviously they're shorter players, and I think Grantham came back a little bit came back in this game
yeah, he
and played a
did
little.
off the bench. Yeah,
It
yeah.
really helped them. But still, Conor Morgan going for 30 minutes, and they yeah, it demonstrated London's kind of mentality towards the game, I thought.
Mm,
Whereas obviously, as I say, last year you got Luke Nelson and Aaron Best playing 12 minutes,
mm,
in the game that they lost in the knockout game.
yeah.
So yeah.
Green 19, McGill 18, Austin 18 points, 13 rebounds. He was great on the offensive glass. Didn't mention it going through, but they were
Yeah.
22 of 77 and 7 of 23. They also missed 9 free throws as well, Nuke.
Well,
11
that's
free
right. I mean,
throws, sorry.
they had to play a perfect game, I think, to
Mm,
win with 6 guys. You got to play a perfect game. That means you got to shoot, 80, 90% from the foul line. That means you got to make some threes. And they didn't really make that many shots. I do think they caused a little bit of a matchup problem for London with all those quick guards. I
mm,
think, on another day, they might not be the closest team to get in London, but they're not the furthest away either, because
mm.
they are very different to what London come up against. And basically, if you try and play the same way as London with inferior players, you're going to lose
Yeah,
every single
yeah.
time. Whereas if you've got an entirely different style, and you've got these guards who are putting them under pressure off the dribble, then you've got a puncher's chance if you make a few shots. Make your foul shots. It's still a puncher's chance. It's not much
Yeah,
more than
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you've got, you can maybe get a couple of them into foul trouble, but not with 6 players, I don't think.
Mm, no. Let's go to Friday. Leicester Riders 95, Bristol Flyers 74. Obviously, they released CJ Jackson came to the end of his short-term contract. They signed Levi Bradley. Ollison is still out, and Lucas was also out for this game as well. Riders missing a few shots early. Graham Bell, a couple of quick fouls. Not a lot in this in the first quarter. Both teams led by 4, but neither got on top.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? With Bristol went from literally having 3 starting quality kind of point guards to none,
Mm,
because Ollison's been playing a little bit of the point for them,
mm,
and obviously Jackson has been there, and Lucas has been there from the beginning of the season.
mm.
And suddenly they've gone from having kind of a surplus of riches in the backcourt to having none. And Corey Samuels, who's still a backup at best.
Mm.
He's having to start and play 22, 23 minutes in the
Well,
game.
Johnson was obviously playing in this game as well.
Yeah, he's more. I don't think he's a PG though. I think he's a kind of a slasher type player. But so it takes away a little bit from kind of the pressure that you're able to impose at the kind of the point guard spot.
Mm.
Um, and obviously it's a bounce back in it, because Leicester got beat by them 2 weeks ago there.
Yeah,
And they got
yeah,
marmalised on the glass, and therefore the mentality of players is always, we did it once, we can do it again, but they don't
yeah,
kind of factor in the fact that the other team's thinking, you're not doing that to us again.
yeah.
It's that kind of confidence is an extraordinarily dangerous thing in British basketball league when you play teams so regularly.
Yeah.
There are only so few teams. It's not like the NBA where you might play a team twice in 3 days and not see them again for 4 months.
Mm.
You get very familiar with these teams very quickly. And one person's confidence is another person's lack of appropriate fear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I don't think Bristol necessarily had the appropriate fear. And obviously then Leicester had, Alan, who was able to make a lot of plays in this game, and Bristol really never got a handle on him.
No, Allen 4-point play, Washington 3. Adowu was playing really well as well. Leicester scored 18 consecutive points from the 2 minutes into the first quarter into the second quarter to lead 37-15. And Johnson also picked up his third foul
And obviously
in that
Bristol have
period as well.
droughts.
Yeah.
We know Bristol have droughts, and particularly without, when they're missing a number of those guys, and Jacob didn't get going either. Which is, they're without those 2 players, without Lucas and
Mm.
Ollison and Jackson going, they're pretty much, and with it being Bradley's first game, they're pretty much in perfect game territory as well to have to win, to do everything right. And if one of the main bench guys isn't able to score the ball and struggles, and Leicester are coming back with, as I say, with 8 points to prove, and a talented group. And Ado is a really interesting one because the last 3 or 4 games he's been really good.
He has.
He's
Yeah.
playing as a kind of as an undersized five, which brings its own problems. But the kind of extra kind of responsibilities had he seems to have really lived up to. Really kind of it's given him a bit of a push. And he's scoring the ball inside probably perhaps more than he did when at the beginning of the season when he was basically just picking and popping. And when you score the ball inside and you're a little bit undersized, it kind of always talks about somebody's heart, about they're going to keep going to the basket, they're going to keep making tough plays, they're not just going to stand there and jack threes. So that's 3 or 4 games in a row. He's been really impressive, and that might be a positive to come for Leicester. Hopefully, the lack of big guys they've got. But yeah, Bristol have droughts, and I think Bristol with their full group are as dangerous a team as anybody to London. Bristol without the head of the snake, and the second head of the snake, and the third head of the snake's just gone home. That's going to be tough to beat anybody, I think.
Leicester had another 10-0 run in the second quarter, 52-25 with 2:37 to go to halftime. Here's a stat for you. A minute into the third quarter, Riders were 21 of 23 from 2-point range. Bearing in mind that they'd missed their first shot and their 21st shot. So they had a spell from 15 seconds into the game to 1:15 to go to halftime where they were 18 of 19 from two.
No, I mean, Leicester are a gifted offensive team. Even before the changes, they were probably uber gifted at that point. But they have a bunch of players who are all kind of comfortable if they get into their spots and knowing how they're going to score the ball. Their issue going forward, I think, is going to be how they share that all out and how they figure it all out together, as opposed to that, being more than the kind of the combination of their individual talents. But they've had games in that gym whereby they shoot the lights out and shoot the lights out on good shots and they look comfortable. This I think was another one of them.
Allen had 30.7 rebounds. He was 9 of 17 from the floor, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. Adowu, 7 of 12 for 15 points and 14 rebounds. Mackenzie, 12. Jacob had 16.6 rebounds, 5 assists, but was a team high -26. Smith, 13 points and 7 rebounds, and Thomas Edwards and Johnson both 12. They were 27 of 71, and you talked about them normalizing Leicester last time out. 9 offensive rebounds, 2 second chance points.
Yeah, and that's credit to Adowu to a lesser extent Walker, but Adowu for 14 rebounds. He isn't a guy who's he's not a high flyer, I would say, under the basket. He's not a guy who goes up and gets them from way out of his area. But he seems that's a big effort against that team who are crashing all the time for him to come up with 14 rebounds, given that he's probably 6'7". And as I say, not an enormously high flyer. And that comes out of, them kind of being a bit embarrassed last time they played with the amount of offensive rebounds Bristol got. And that, again, that extra little bit of focus, that makes a massive difference in the game. And you always think, well, why can't that always be there every time? It doesn't work like that. Everyone has good days at work, everyone has bad days at work, everyone has meh days at work, And the advantage that kind of London have and everybody else is that they have enough players to be able to absorb, enough really good players to absorb people's kind of days at work. And even then, the kind of the baseline level of their talent is such that a day at work is still pretty good because Conor Morgan, even if he can't make a shot, is going to get 9 rebounds for you. You know what I mean? So they've got more room for maneuver than everybody else. But Leicester and Bristol don't. And this occasion, Leicester played pretty much a perfect offensive game, and Bristol regressed.
Yes. Newcastle Eagles 92, Manchester Giants 78. Harris was dressed but didn't play for Newcastle for Manchester. Anderson and Walsh were both back. Eagles with the same lineup as the night before, but this time they only played 6 players. Eagles some steals early on. Austin scoring 6 points, 9-0 run, and they got on top 2014.
Yeah, let's just have a little rant about the schedule first.
I'd expect nothing less, Dave. Go on. I think I already know it. I think, did you put it on
Yeah, I think
Twitter?
I've mentioned most of it, but the fact that I can solve the schedule answer in 5 minutes and nobody
Mm,
else has had the thought to, I'm afraid, is pretty poor. Um, I can't contemplate that in a situation where you've got to play 4 games in basically 18 days, most
mm,
teams, by about the 22nd of 4 games over 3 weekends, effectively. Um, that you have to play 2 of those games, on the fourth and the fifth back to back, and particularly when that back to back involved a 300
mm.
mile journey home the following morning. Um, it, it's kind of that is, I think that's
I
sort of
was worried for leaves on the line, by the way, given what
yeah,
happened
absolutely. Can
last
you
week.
imagine? I
Yeah.
mean, the concept that a team might actually not make its own home game to travel.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have blown, that would have blown the Twitterverse's mind. But it was feasible. It struck me that the last couple of weeks, and I apologize for this in advance, that Newcastle have kind of been the anti-Westlife.
The anti-Westlife.
Yeah,
Go
you
on.
being an Irishman, you should.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, last week
I'm more the Pokes than the Westlife, but
yeah,
go
well,
on.
last week it was Plymouth. Yeah, Plymouth, it was no flying.
Yeah.
And this week they're playing without wings.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, no, I mean it's. I mean, I'm not going to just rant about that. It's ultimately, I mean, I think everybody agrees that there has, and Mark even said something about it, that there has to be a focus a little bit more on player welfare in the way that the schedule is put
Mm,
together.
mm,
And that kind of concerns me probably even more than kind of competitive imbalance. I think
mm,
ultimately you're always going to 5 team group. There is always going to be an element of competitive imbalance in relation to the schedule. I'd like to see more transparency about it. I've no idea how it was drawn that, for instance, Caledonia have to go to Plymouth, or that London in that group get away games in Manchester and Bristol, whereas Newcastle get away games in London and Bristol. There's a
mm.
substantial difference of travelling there. So were those games drawn, or were they just assigned, or whatever? Do we
I
know?
was told the groups were randomly drawn. I didn't
Yeah,
ask the
there's no
question
company.
about who plays who, how that
Yeah,
was
and
picked.
it does make a difference. So I'm sure the groups were randomly drawn. It's
Mm.
just the level of detail, the level of thought that goes into ensuring that everything works.
I know when you do like say FIBA Europe Cup or something,
Yeah,
before the draw, it's
team
ball
one will
one,
play.
it
Oh,
goes we'll play, and so you already know who you know as soon as you come out who's playing where. So it
I
could
have
have
more
been
faith
something
in
like that.
relation to the overall governance of FIBA Euro Cup than I do at the moment in
Mm,
relation to the British Basketball League. Remembering that the fixtures didn't even come out till the 16th of August.
mm,
So who's to say it wasn't kind of fitted around the most convenient set of fixtures. But nevertheless, even in 12 years, I think we only ever once had a away game on a Thursday and a home game on a Friday,
mm.
and that was in the playoffs, and that was at Bristol and back.
Yeah,
And that was because it was a playoff situation, and we wanted to play at home second, so we took
yeah.
that on board. I mean, doing it in mid-season is just, even though I know their games are being played now on Thursdays, um, if it was London and Surrey, and then maybe I suppose Surrey and Bristol or something like that, you could just about get away with it.
Mm,
But what that was wrong, that wasn't right. But then again, as we all know, um, adversity brings out the best in
mm,
people.
mm,
So here's the whinging about it. The whinging, oh, wow, how they only got 6 players. Well, that's not the league's fault.
mm,
Oh, it's not fair them to come back. Well, at the end of the day, that gives you a great speech in the locker room,
mm,
which is, you played last night, guys. You're in rhythm. You're all going to play your minutes. Let's not feel sorry for ourselves. Let's just go and play. And obviously, it also gives kind of the fans that little bit of a kind of, it's us against the world type of thing as
mm,
well. So they're getting behind the guys that they've got. And I thought Newcastle were as good as Manchester were as bad.
mm.
If that makes
Yeah,
any
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
Newcastle,
So that's, yeah.
Manchester turned the ball out over 21 times.
Yeah, and the thing
Um,
was, they were spell in the second quarter. Anderson and Walsh hit some threes, and they got it down. But every time they looked like they might make a run, they just kept turning the ball over.
They did, and they were bad turnovers as well. They were,
Really
I mean,
bad.
obviously there's a couple of times Austin is just going to get his hand on the ball because
Yeah, yeah.
that's Austin. That's what he does. And you'd like your guys to be aware of that and be more alive to the risk. But at the end of the day, he's going to get some. But there was some in the half court they just threw away. Another little rant point I've got here. I don't like the fact, and this is nothing against the personalities involved or the people involved, because I don't know them. But I don't like the fact that we're bringing new refs into the trophy competition halfway through a season. It's happened twice this week, once in Newcastle, once at Surrey. And there might be great guys, there might be good refs, not a problem with that. But the suggestion is, if you're putting a ref on this first game in the middle of this on this competition, you're basically saying, oh well, this is a competition to give you a chance in. Well, that's actually the wrong way around, because these games are being played harder, and I think we've seen it over the weekend. There's better play, and there's harder play, and there's more determined play and more focus in these games than there has been over the league games over the last month.
There's a lot more jeopardy on it, as you could just
Absolutely.
feel it, like the
Yeah,
Caledonia game yesterday.
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
they can't
These are real
afford to
games.
lose. Yeah.
So I don't see, I'm a little bit, if you're in the NBA, you're an NBA ref for a season, and it's meant to be an exclusive panel, and you work hard, and you get your tests, and if you can get into it the next season, you get into it the next season. What they don't do is bring people up and down from the G League. I'm pretty sure that's exactly the same in the Euro League and the Europe Cup as well. And I do worry that we are getting to the point whereby it's a matter of let's give everybody a chance. And as I say, people might be worthy of that chance, but if they're worthy of that chance, they should be worthy of that chance at the beginning of the season. They should be in at the beginning of the season, and they should not be having a situation where they're being expected to get up to speed with probably the fastest basketball games that they've ever refereed in their lives in the middle of the season on the games that actually have more jeopardy. So I do think there is an issue for the officiating people, the league there to look at, and that's not against either of the two guys who ref, because I didn't think they were bad at all from what I'm saying. And even if they were bad, judging them on one game would be utterly unfair. So it's not about that. But it's about, what is the policy in relation to this? The reason I get around to that is because I didn't think the refs in the Newcastle Manchester game were that good. I think I thought they were. The die was cast with me when in the first 2 minutes, all three refs blew the foul blew their whistle at the same time for a foul on McGill when McGill drove into, I think, I can't remember which Manchester player. All put their hands up for a foul, but no one could decide whether it was an offensive foul or it was a block. And so three of them had to go and have a chat with each other, and then they announced it was an offensive foul. And then Ref Unsworth went to the table and gave the wrong number, gave Johnson's number. That's not good, Firstly, that you're not signaling an offensive foul straight away. And secondly, that it takes three of you to discuss that call, which is a bog standard call. It probably was a charge. I think it was a charge. So I think they probably got it right. But then you've got the wrong player, and you see on the TV, you see Stuart getting in the ref's face, what's going on? Who's called it on what? And then over the course of the game, obviously exemplified by the end of the first half, which I'm sure you're going to get to in a second.
Carry on. Go on.
Yeah,
go on. I was going to get to it, but
yeah. I mean, Evan Walsh. I don't think he's even caught the ball before the later on in the board.
So you've got. I wasn't expecting you to stop there. I was expecting you to carry on. But basically, Manchester got a score on the buzzer after the buzzer. That was quite a ways after the buzzer and was eventually given. But by the time they gave it, there'd already been a replay on the screen to see that it was
on the big screen to show that it wasn't. So the whole crowd's saying that. I don't like I don't like the idea that the guy on the baseline, the ref on the baseline, who's got no clue, no chance of possibly knowing whether it's a good basket or not. He's involved in the conversations. It has to be the trail ref, or it has to be. They have to be, and the call has to be made straight away. You can't spend 2 minutes discussing was it or wasn't it. If you don't see it at the time, then you're guessing. Now, Ovi said it on the TV, and this is why I say I thought it was a bit of a sluggishly ref game, to be honest. I didn't think they grasped much. There was a couple of fouls later on in the transition, which I thought were very close to unsportsmanlike, and it didn't get close to either. But Ovi said that, Mike Tuck said, well, they don't get replay, and Ovi said, no, that's, they've got eyes, It's different if it's a 3-point shot and you've got to look in the corner and at the light. Now that's tough, but when it's right under the basket, I could see from 80 feet away that was late, without any rose tinted specs on. and for them to have 2 minutes and then have it on the big screen, and then and still get it wrong, having 3 of them conferred on a call that possibly only 2 of them could have been in any position to make anyway. I just thought it was a bad look, and it goes further because there is absolutely no reason why that error should not be able to be corrected. None whatsoever. It doesn't delay the game because the game's delayed for 15 minutes anyway. Right? It doesn't unfairly prejudice anybody. It's not talking about foul calls. You're not doing anything else. The teams are in the locker room. Right? In the NBA now, they can go back on 3-point shots like to the last break of play to see if someone's foot's on the line or not. They're actually interested in getting things right. Now, I'm not saying we go back that far in the British Basketball League because of the technological difficulties there might be, the lack of camera angles, etc. But in this, quote marks my hated phrase, this day and age, a phrase I hate because this age has been running for about 2,000 Neolithic years. In this day and age, every team in the league should have red lights on the backboard. That should be an absolute non-negotiable. And there's 2 or 3 that don't. And every game should any buzzer beater calls, and you could even extend this to shot clock calls as well, should be instantly reviewable because there is, if there's a light on the backboard and there is a ball in somebody's hand, it's a photograph. It is done in a 1/10 of a second. You can see it, and it pains me I'm having to say this because they're lucky at the moment. They've really been lucky. There will be one, maybe not this season, maybe next season. There will be one at the end of a game, which actually impacts the result of a game. And the team that wins the game walks off losing the game because the refs have had to guess at a close call, which is not visible to the human eye. It happens. And then all hell will break loose. And I will be here to say, I told you so. And I might even say, I will. It's pointing a gun at your own foot and continuing to shoot yourself in it. There is no reason why that call had to be made. There was one at Leicester earlier on in the season, Manchester got the benefit of as well. A 3-point shot that was late that we saw on the screen on Sky straight afterwards. It was half time. But if it had been full time, wow. So that is a pretty justifiable run. There is just no proper reason why that can't be checked like everybody else can. You see, this is the thing, they can write the regulations whatever they want. It doesn't have to be every call. It doesn't have to be challenging.
No. You choose the EuroLeague one. They just seem to add new things that can be reviewed every year, and it's almost like, well, there comes a point where you go, enough. You don't need all of these.
Yeah, well, I get that, but we're operating under this all or nothing rule.
But the point is, there can be one. You can just say, right, we will review.
We will review the thing
and the clock issues.
We will review the thing that's going to cause us potentially the most embarrassment if it goes wrong.
Yeah. Well, because there was also the one in Caledonia. I forget who they were playing where they scored at the end of
it was a corner jump shot.
Yeah,
which is
it ended up being a 2-point game or something like that, wasn't it? Was it the Leicester game? I can't remember.
It might have been. I think it was Moore in the corner.
Yeah.
But and we don't think as much of it because it's half time. We've all forgotten about it. These things matter. There's 4 quarters in every game. There's shots at the end of the buzzer. Point that can make a massive difference to a game. But most importantly, obviously, if it happens right at the end. But there is just no the mentality at the moment is it's all or nothing. I don't get that mentality. That's just burying your head in the sand because something's too hard. We can't be bothered to do it, or we're not willing to introduce stuff, or we don't think it's real. If the technology is not there and it doesn't help you, fine, just go with what the refs think.
Yeah.
What's the problem? Go with, to use a phrase, the call on the floor or the soft signal or whatever you want. Call it.
Well, that's what they do in the reviewables and in the EuroLeague. There are some of them like the deflection out of bounds. They give a call and say this is what we've called, and then if they can't see any evidence against that, they stick with the call.
Yeah. As I say, I get the delay point because delays are endemic at the moment, but we've rewritten the rules for TV timeout, so you can write them rewrite them for the good stuff as well. Anyway, so
third quarter,
game.
Giants did get ahead. I was wondering at that point whether the fatigue might kick in for the Newcastle six, but then Johnson took over 10 points in a row, 12-0 run, 70-59, and that was pretty much that.
Well, Johnson does this. He has splurges. You know, he did it in the end of the first quarter. He had 11 in a row, and then the end of the third quarter, he had 10 in a row. And kind of Austin's energy throughout kept them going. And you know, and Darius playing 37 minutes, not making a shot, but playing 37 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back in London the night before. You know, at the age of 39. I just thought they had more continuity and more will to win this game than Manchester. I don't know what's happening with Harris. That's a weird one because he started half the season and he didn't get off the bench. He didn't look like someone who was injured. He looked like someone, to be frank, who was a bit dispirited. You know, injured guys are normally getting up and cheering their guys on. I didn't see much of that from him.
No.
Stampley, who's played really well, I think, when he's had extended minutes, he kind of was very much in and out in this game. William Lee played 38 minutes, which is a lot for William Lee, given his injuries issues, you know, given the amount of bodies that they had. They've kind of lost Lawton as well because behind Robertson, and Robertson's impactful, but he kind of helps them and hurts them. And they trapped Newcastle's zone like it was written in hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
I mean, they had nothing against the zone. Absolutely befuddled them, and Newcastle were basically in the zone, and this allowed them to play Delpesh and Defoe and Green at the same time. But Newcastle were basically in the zone to save their legs, you know. And Manchester just, other than Lee flashing to the high post a little bit, they just failed miserably to breach it. And in every game this season, when Newcastle had been up with 10 with 6 minutes to go, you know, I've had pretty much a sense of impending doom, and never had it in this game.
No.
You know, it just struck me that, you know, Manchester have got, you know, really some issues to resolve. Now, I do think primarily they're personnel related. And you got to find a way of keeping, there's no point having a long bench if half the bench is sulking. You know, half the bench isn't locked into it. And on top of that, Nick Lewis is in a hideous slump in relation to his 3-point shot.
Yeah.
So you put all that together, it was a great win for Newcastle because it was kind of unexpected, given the schedule, given the numbers. And to be fair to them, they're now 9-3 in the last 12 games. You know, which if we'd had that at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the season, the narrative about them would have been a bit different to what it is now. And that's what's kind of one thing that, you know, Mark's shown is that when he's had a solid group together and he's kept the group together, he did it at the end of last season as well. He's kind of able to kind of get a tune out of them most of the time. He's got more talent this year. But, you know, as I say, and Delpesh was excellent. Delpesh was really good in this game. He had 11 points in 17 minutes and he gave them what they needed. But you've got to be able to do against London as well, you know. If you want to be any good. And Manchester, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of Manchester team's going to turn up at Leicester on Wednesday. I kind of fear for them a little bit, I'll be honest. Just Jamel just throwing the ball away when he, you know, there was one time in the first half where I think the ball was thrown back out towards half court, and I think it might have been McGill who in the corner, and McGill kind of reached back to get it. And Jamel kind of had assumed that it was going out and got caught. That's not him, you know. It just didn't. They did not look like a group that was particularly together. Maybe that was compared to Newcastle group who is because of all the travelling they've done. I don't know. But I will say there's two calls. The two calls I'm talking about. One, Green went down the middle and Robertson basically grabbed him with two hands as he went for a layup. And you see it on the baseline camera, which I thought, again, from 80 feet away was unsportsmanlike. And then there's a second one where kind of Stampley went across with two hands, as Green was going there, which was pretty close as well. And we're going to get to this with the Caledonia game as well. But, you know, the question in relation to unsportsmanlike primarily is risk of harm to players as opposed to, you know, mentality of the person who commits a foul. And I thought on both of those calls, there was a potential, they were borderline at the very least. I just thought the rest were a bit dozy the whole game. I just thought everything was a bit dozy in this game. Newcastle playing a zone, Manchester throwing the ball away. The only undozy thing about it was like Larry Austin basically flying around.
My frustration, I'd been at the Leicester game and I'd come back and I was looking at the Statcast on this, and my frustration was Johnson looked like he was going to. I think he had 27 or 28 points without taking a free throw, and he
Oh,
looked
right.
like he
Okay.
was going to
Oh,
get
how
through the
frustrating.
whole game. And I was like, when was the last time he didn't take a free throw? And then
Well,
he got was it two or three in the last minute?
I
And
think it was a technical.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
here's the thing, right? I actually thought he was. Honestly, I thought there was 3 or 4 times within the game, and you've just triggered my memory with that.
Mm.
And whereby he didn't get calls that he has been getting in
Yeah,
other.
yeah, 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 yeah. There was a because I then watched it back, knowing
Yeah,
this, and then there was a couple I went, well, he'd normally get free throws for that.
yeah, and I'm
But
thinking,
also the last time somebody scored 28 points without a free throw, and I was going to look it up, but I didn't bother because it didn't
right,
happen.
yeah. So it was again, it's just I just thought that the refs were a bit. I mean, having said that, Newcastle shot 3 times as many foul shots as Manchester, but then
Yeah,
Newcastle were in the zone most of the time, so that's
yeah, yeah.
probably why that happened, you know.
So Johnson, 30.7 assists, Green, 23.7 rebounds, Austin, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 6 steals, and 4 assists. And they had 19 points off turnovers, 21 turnovers for
The
Manchester.
biggest thing for Austin was that's 24 rebounds in like 2 nights
Mm,
consecutive play. I
yeah.
mean, that's for a 6'2" guy. You know,
Mm,
that's
really good.
you got to
Yeah,
give him a lot of credit for that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
mentality.
Lee, 23 points and 15 rebounds. Lewis, 12 points, 19 shots. Walsh, 12 points, 10 shots.
Mm.
And I already mentioned their 21 turnovers. Let's go to Caledonia, 97. Cheshire Phoenix, 100 after overtime. Obviously, a rerun of last year's trophy final. Buttrick was a DMP,
Mm.
but he was dressed, and we've learned today that he's now no longer with Caledonia. So that
Is that
probably,
right? I didn't
yes,
know that.
yeah, they
You helped me out on that.
put
I
out a
assumed
tweet
that he was. I
earlier today.
assumed he was hurt, but wow, that's interesting.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah,
that's to be fair, that's my preseason predictions
mm,
kind of paid off a little bit later than otherwise. But I did,
mm,
I mean, to be fair, I did say Dubose looked a bit in the preseason game. Dubose looked a bit disenchanted as well, but he's been very good. So
yeah, yes,
right, so they've released him as well, have they? All
yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah.
Can I? So the sword on Gareth's lapel is being brought into use, is it?
It would appear
Indeed,
that
that's
way. Yeah,
it's yes.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, more worryingly, from Caledonia's point of view, is a couple of minutes into this game, DeBose hit the ground. He sort of stumbled over Rideau's foot. It looked to me like a shoulder issue because he didn't really
Hmm.
want picking back up, and he never returned to the game, and obviously didn't play on Sunday either. So that looked like it was a significant
You
one.
see, I should have spotted that because the game before Jovovich was cut, he didn't play either.
Mm,
Coach is basically saying, "I don't want you," and then no doubt that they're using that to um, kind of hasten their exit out the door.
mm,
Which will no doubt have some form of financial repercussions on what they get paid off, etc. If a player wants to move, as opposed to if a player's left when he doesn't want to move.
mm,
Um, yeah, but divorce is a major issue for them. And once he went down, and you know that Buttrick's not there, and I think there was somebody else missing as well in this game, wasn't there? I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember now. I haven't written anything down.
No, it might just have been Buttrick, but I just had in my mind there was somebody else, maybe not. But once he went down, Buttrick's not playing. Almost was missing the next game. I thought not this game.
Mm,
Um, it's kind of a game that Cheshire have to win, really.
mm,
At that point, it's a game that's out there because Bothwell at this point, I think, was over 14 from the 3-point lane or something like that, or since he's been here.
He
So he
was he was 0 for 13 going into the Plymouth game, and he made
got
his
the
first
Plymouth
one in
game.
Plymouth. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he's suddenly, kind of thrown into playing 35, 40 minutes at the point, and they're still dealing with the kind of the Moore and Ali Hodge kind of, back and forward
Mm.
as well. Um, And the game went back and forwards. I mean, I thought I mean, talk briefly about the unsportsmanlike on Holden.
Yeah, let's just quickly run through the stuff before that. So there were no threes in the first 15 minutes. Then Knicks hit two in a row to cap a 10-0 run to 26-36. Johnson and Whelan then hit threes for the Gladiators in a 16-2 run to 42-38. 137 to go. Holden called for an unsportsmanlike for a shove on Moore. The close-up of Chris Dodds, who'd made the call, seemed to imply to me, I don't know if you had the same view, that he'd said he'd pushed him while he was in the air, but he
Yes.
never actually got off the ground, which
Yeah.
is why I thought it's like, if he's in the air and he's pushed him, I haven't got a problem with that being an
Yeah.
unsportsmanlike foul. But he hadn't actually taken off at the point he was
Yeah.
pushed.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I think you're kind of on the same line as me here. I mean, if that's a push on an offensive rebound by an offensive rebounder, as more as going into defensively rebound the ball, that's not unsportsmanlike foul. We
Mm.
see that all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because and I don't see any danger to Moore there. And it wasn't as if it was a gratuitous kind of, arms out, I'm going to fling you out the way type of thing either.
Mm.
So I just think, to be fair, Ian McDonald called the foul to start with. Obviously went to ask for some advice. My view has always kind of been, if you think it's unsportsmanlike, call the unsportsmanlike, then take it off.
Mm.
If it's not. But when you put your fist up for a normal foul and then you walk across the court and then you upgrade it, when you're the guy who's had the best sight of it, I'm always like, are you really sure about that? But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a tough call because there was a call. I mean, if you call them that, then there was I think Nate Montgomery in the Sheffield game grabbed Justin Robinson on the
Yeah,
way,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and Justin Robinson took against that. Well, why is that not on us? Well, you could get into there's always going to be contact off the ball.
yeah, yeah.
To be unsportsmanlike, it has to be gratuitous. It has to be you have to normally the rule is basically you have to pull somebody's shirt.
Mm.
Not the rule, but the way it's adopted, you have to pull somebody's shirt, or it has to be dangerous.
Mm.
I didn't think that was. I didn't
I
think that
I
was
think it was one of them where because it was a lob pass, it
mm.
would have been dangerous if he'd pushed him half a second later because he would
Yeah,
have been in the air, and
and
then
of
it would have
course
been
you have to
dangerous. But
remember
it
that
hadn't got that far.
2 minutes earlier he'd also just thrown one down off a
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
long
yeah,
pass, right,
yeah.
flowing through the air. So the refs probably have that in their mind. But no, I think it just slightly misread the extent of that. But yeah, anyway, why did
And the reason we're
yeah.
talking about that is because I've put 30 seconds. I think is it 30 seconds to go or 30 seconds into I can't remember when it was, but I've written 30 seconds somewhere. There was a bit of a nothing between Ali Hodgic and Holden, some minor chatting back and forth, and then your old favourite, the double technical, which means Holden's ejected for
Yeah,
the
we
game.
didn't see it. I didn't actually see it on the I didn't really see it greatly on the TV as to precisely the extent of what happened.
Mm,
Um, I do. It takes me back to that game at I think the Newcastle London game early in the season where David Griffin was on the TV and you saw his lips move and say, well, if we give him a technical, we have to throw it. If it's double T, we've got to throw him out. About Tariq
mm,
Phillip. And they didn't give him one on that occasion. I wasn't sure whether that was right or wrong. And this time, Chris Dodds is whoever it was has said, no, what you've done is worthy of a double technical to calm
yeah,
this
yeah,
down. Therefore, you got to go.
yeah.
I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I'm not going to judge that because I think Holden was daft getting back involved into something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if you're on non-sports and rookies often forget this, but you've got to be on your best behavior. So I don't really have any. I don't like double text, but I didn't see enough of it to understand why it
No.
happened.
I mean, again, I'm with you. I don't really. I'm not a massive fan of them. I think sometimes they are. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have a blanket ban on them.
No, no, absolutely not.
But you've seen double technicals given for that exact thing many a time over the years.
Yeah, yeah. But that impacts Cheshire because Holden has to go, and Holden was actually playing quite aggressively and quite well. Um, yeah, just on the basketball, kind of Caledonia kept coming. Cheshire spent the last kind of 3 minutes trying to give the game away,
Mm,
and you'll get to that in a second.
yeah.
But I didn't, I wasn't entirely sold on either team. I thought Cheshire should have put the game away earlier. I'm not sure that Rye's entirely healthy. He was pretty limited in his mobility in this game. He had 7 points and 6 rebounds in 35 minutes, which isn't the way he's been playing. And to be honest, it was kind of Skylar that carried them.
Mm. So he hit two threes in a 12-0 run to 69-78.
Mhm.
And with 4 minutes to go, it's still 74-84. So they've still got a 10-point lead. But then they had four turnovers in a row, a side of the backboard three. And what basically should have been done is now 80-84 with 2:27 to go.
Yeah, Rideau kind of had a weird 2 minutes.
Mm.
he turned the ball over. Then I think he threw another one away, and he might have gotten a sports from like when someone stole the ball off him, or he turned the ball over and maybe someone got a transition layup. I can't actually remember, but I remember thinking, oh, he's just kind of just gone a bit off radar. And the problem in that gym is if you give Caledonia half a shot, they can get their gander up and they can start
Mm.
making plays.
So let's run through the last couple of minutes. Christian's foul, one of two, 80-85. Bothwell is fouled by Rideau. That's his fourth personal foul. He's one of two, but Moore gets the loose ball off the second free throw, which was the missed free throw,
Yeah.
and he scores, throws it back in 83-85. And at this point, you can see Ben is like, what the hell has happened here?
Yes.
Because this game should be over because that's a 9-1 run. Rideau down the middle floats one in 83-87. Poliza misses a tough shot. Rideau is fouled. It's 83-89. He makes both
Yeah.
free
And
throws.
then
1:15 to go, and you're thinking, well, okay, they've sorted it now.
yeah.
And then 55 seconds to go, late shot clock. Onwas banks in a contested three, 86-89, and you are thinking this could be Caledonia's night.
Yeah,
And
this is kicking off. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. And then Cheshire throw the ball
yeah,
away.
they were trying to get it to Rye. Paliza steals it, gives it to Whelan, and everybody backs away from him for some
Yeah.
reason. He's on the 3-point line, so he says, "Thank you very much." Ties the game 89-89 with
Yeah,
46 seconds to go.
yeah, it's kind of this is maybe Cheshire's kind of Achilles heel in close games is this Rideau's foul shooting.
Mm, mm.
They don't get like, last 2 weeks I've been saying get it to your point guard.
Yeah, yeah.
And Rideau, the difficulty is that they're not convinced of him getting the ball to him at the line. So they're forcing the ball into other guys. And as I say, I don't think Rye was right in this game at all. And then yeah, they were kind of frozen in shock as Whelan shot the three. It was
Mm,
like watching it in slow motion. It was like watching a horror movie in slow motion.
mm, mm.
Just
And then Cheshire come back the other way. Obviously, you've basically got one offense each with
yeah,
46 seconds to go. White was stuck trying to shoot a three, and almost was right up on him. So he had nothing, and then the clock tick tick tick, and he has to throw up a
jacket one.
hail mary at the end of the shot clock, and it fell way short. And then Bothwell ticking it down. Rideau knocks it away. Rye throws it forward to him, and it was a tough attempt on the buzzer. I didn't know if he was trying to draw a foul rather than worrying about scoring, but it didn't go, and we went to overtime.
He had probably 1 second too few.
Mm.
I mean, it
He
was.
couldn't get all the way to the basket, but he got close enough.
I mean, it's a weird thing from Caledonia's perspective. You've played Leicester a few weeks ago, and you've run your stuff at the end of the game, and you've got shots where you want them,
Mm.
and Whelan made a shot and got the ball to Moore to make a shot, and on that play.
Mm.
And then in this game, you haven't got a timeout because obviously the play is live, and you end up with the ball in the hands of the guy who's been there for like 3 weeks.
Mm.
And I'm like, what? I know DeBose isn't there, but I'm thinking, well, Whelan and police need to make some decisions at this point, because that's where the ball has to be, and they nearly paid for it. If it wasn't, I think if Onwas getting back, and making a really tough defensive play just by being there,
Mm.
that might be the game. So I thought, yeah, it was all a little bit disorientating that last minute. Cheshire throwing the ball away, watching Whelan shoot it, then two pretty awful offensive possessions from either team. And then the question of whether there was a foul on the buzzer, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't a foul on the buzzer.
No, I just didn't know whether he should have. I thought he might have been trying to get a foul
Yeah.
in rather than trying to score
Yeah, he
because he
did
was
kind
in
of a
an
funky
awkward
step, didn't he?
spot.
It was kind of a
Yeah,
funky mini
yeah,
Euro step thing.
yeah, yeah,
But it's last seconds, and
yeah,
it's so
yeah.
tough at that point.
It
He's made a
is.
great play to get a steal.
So into overtime, 3:20 to go. Christian to the basket is fouled, and then after the play, Shagwal pushes Onwas to the floor and is called for a technical. And the free throw for the foul is waved off, and that obviously there's no free throw for the technical, and it's an end
Mm.
line ball, and we're all scratching our heads, going, "What is this?" And obviously, I was getting questions on Twitter, and I was at the
Yeah,
beginning of this game. So I have asked the question because my first take was, okay, he seems to be saying the two things
Offsetting.
cancel each other out,
Yeah,
and they do cancel each other out. Except what about possession of the ball? Because if
yeah.
you've got a free throw, you haven't got possession because you might miss. But I've asked the question, I've got the answer. See the official basketball rules interpretations 42-5. So, example, B1 fouls A1 on a shot for a successful goal. A1 is then charged with a technical foul. So that's basically what happened, except it's
Yeah.
probably A2 rather than A1. Interpretation: A1's goal shall count. The penalty for both fouls are equal and shall cancel each other. The game shall be resumed as after any successful goal, which is basically what happened.
Yeah, and to be fair, we've never really had that before because
No?
up until a few years ago, technicals were two shots.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you've never had that situation of it being a one shot. I have a slight issue with the technical because I think they missed Onwas's little push on Chargeois
Mm,
first.
mm.
I thought that actually should have been a double technical because it was Onwas who initiated it. It with a but Chargeois came back and pushed him out. But no, I mean, as a rule, it actually makes a bit of sense. Actually,
So
it probably
42,
favors Caledonia because
42.6 is a bit more what you're saying because 42.6 is B1 fouls A1 on a
yeah,
successful shot for goal. A1 is charged with the technical foul, followed by Team B head coach technical foul. So double technical across the way.
yeah,
A1's goal should count. The penalty for the fouls are equal and should be cancelled in the order in which they occurred. The penalties for B1's personal foul and A1's technical foul cancel each other. For Team B's coach technical to foul, any player from Team A shall attempt the technical free throw with no lineup. Game shall be resumed as after any successful goal. So if there was a double technical there, they still would have waved off the first layup and
yeah.
the first technical, but the second technical would have been a shot, and therefore it would have been an end line ball.
And even the way it works, I mean, it kind of advantages Caledonia because
Mm.
um, sorry, it advantages Cheshire because Caledonia could have had anybody shoot
Yeah.
their foul shot on the technical, which is waved off, but whereas Kristen had to shoot it um for Cheshire. So yeah, no credit, credit. I mean, there's a few times this year ref McDonald's kind of got it right
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he's not known the answer. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give him, I mean,
Yeah.
he does tend to attract these situations, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
There was a great one of where you could see the cameras on Ben, and he was getting explained to him, and Ben just went,
really,
"Really?"
yeah, yeah. But that's the thing. If you're a I mean, if you don't know, you just
Yeah,
ride with it. And at the end of the
yeah,
day, that's what it
yeah.
is.
But it was right. So
Yeah.
yeah, credit to them. 2:11 to go. On West fouls out. White makes two free throws, 93-94. 1:42 to go. Rideau sort of bullies his way to the basket. That is definitely his strength. 93-96. Rye with the steal, but incredible block by Bothwell to deny the dunk. That would have sealed it there
Yeah,
at
and
the
that's
end.
what I mean about Rye. Rye wasn't getting. I mean, I know Both has a hell of a play by Bothwell. I'm not knocking it, but that's not what where Rye was in the first 2 months of the season. He wasn't getting blocked at the rim like that. I don't know how healthy he is.
1:11 to go more with an offensive rebound, puts it back 95-96. 55 seconds to go. Bothwell falls and Rideau attacks the rim 95-98. Whelan then missed a three. Rye was fouled on the rebound. He made one of two, 95-99. Whelan then misses another three, but the offensive rebound and eventually Moore lays it in for 97-99. Timeout advance. Obviously, this gives
Yeah, that's
Caledonia a chance
intriguing.
to play defense, and Josh was reminded of what happened in the trophy final when that didn't quite work out for them.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of what you're trying to do is you're taking away the 8-second violation.
Mm,
That's what you're doing. You're taking away the pressure. You're also this thing. How much does Rideau's foul shooting factor into all of this?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because how are they going to get the ball over half court without getting it to Rideau? If they get the ball to Rideau, Rideau's going to be fouled. Does Ben fancy his chances?
Mm,
You know, so it's not quite as like because ordinarily that's a decision you wouldn't make. You would say, oh yeah, you fouled. As I've said it repeatedly on this. You get into the foul game, then as a coach, you've done your job. It's just players have to knock down shots.
mm.
You know, but
It's a gamble on scoring, isn't it? Because you know they're no longer going to foul you,
yeah,
but if you score, you push the game out of reach.
Well, to get it, to say we're more likely to score than we are to make 2 foul shots,
Yeah,
or to get the ball over the court and half court,
yeah,
over get the ball over half court. So yeah, it's a risk averse one. I would think. I would think, you're basically saying we're not going to throw this game away. You're going to have to beat us. That's what it is. But the argument is, well, pro teams should be able to get the ball in on the baseline, and someone should be able to knock down some foul shots.
And it didn't pay off initially because Rideau drove to the basket and missed. Caledonia got the rebound. There was about 15 seconds left for them to work with, down 2. Bothwell again, same as the end of overtime, has the ball, has it knocked away by Rideau once again, and his steal basically won the game because he gets.
I mean, it was a great play by Rideau. Rideau was omnipresent in this game for good and bad. He was a real litmus for the team, and he made a great play at the end there to kind of take the ball away. Bothwell was kind of going into a crowd, but again, this is kind of a smartness thing. You're not going. If I'm Caledonia and I'm picking someone to attack, I'm not going at Rideau. Rideau's man is standing in the corner. Now the problem for that is that Bothwell hasn't really made many threes. So it's hard for them to stand in the corner and give Whelan or give somebody else the basketball. And obviously DeBose isn't there, and it would be DeBose normally. But if you're going one-on-one on Rideau with his kind of strength and his kind of feel for the ball, that's a matchup which favours Cheshire. So, you're playing the matchups, but often those matchups make a massive difference. It's not a question of who do you want to have the ball. It's who do you want to have guarding the ball. You're going to set a screen to get a switch, so you've got a slower guy on him. And I don't think they managed that well in either possession at the end of the game or the end of overtime.
Rideau was fouled. He went 1 for 2 from the free throw line to make it 97-100, but he missed the second, so it ended up with a Moore heave from his own 3-point line.
Moore was good, mate. Moore was good.
Moore was very good. 25 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. Whelan, 20 points, 5 assists. Police, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. White was 6 of 14 for 3 for 25 points and 8 rebounds. Rideau, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 6 steals. And I think he had 6 turnovers, but I didn't write it down. Kristen, 18 points. They were 17 of 34 from the free throw line.
Ouch. That is their Achilles heel, isn't it? They don't make many foul shots. Really intriguing. The Buttrick thing's interesting, though, isn't it? Because you think about it, he hasn't played for 2 games and they've lost. So he's probably thinking, well, you need to play me and we'd win. So you were wrong not to play me. But they've not played him because he was sitting on the bench on Friday, but they've not played him because one assumes they were going to release him. But had he maybe played him, maybe who's to say that you might not have got a few minutes out of him in that game? That could have helped them win a close game. So all not right on the ship, Caledonia.
No. Let's go to Saturday. Surrey Scorchers 91, Sheffield Sharks 71. Obviously a horrific injury for Hunt on the first play of the game.
Yeah, I mean, he was cutting down the lane. He didn't see the guy in front of him. He just twisted his knee, I assume, or his ankle, and it seemed to go under him. And that's it's not nice. Not nice at all. All he can do is hope it's not as bad as it looked, and his career's not at risk or anything like that. And the gas and air is never good, mind, is it, when they're on that?
No.
So I can't really say much more about that. It's just what it was. Just an unfortunate accident.
So when the game restarted, and I must confess, I'd been out and come in half an hour late to this game, and couldn't work out why they were only 5 minutes into the game when I turned it on, and then wound it back, and then saw that, then wound it forward. But from there, so Rotino with a couple of early fouls for Sheffield. Mohammed 3 of 3 from 3-point range, including one in an 8-0 run. They got out to an early lead. 19-11.
Yeah, I mean, Mohammed's 22% 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
3. But he always looks like he's confident enough to shoot them.
Yeah, he does.
Which is a big thing. Surrey are, rapidly approaching basketball competence. You know, if they're not there already, they probably are there already, to be absolutely fair. I mean, it's only the fact that they've been so disappointing in the past 2 or 3 years that's kind of holding us back from saying, you know, they're there. I mean, they played very, very well in this basketball game. You know, they played with confidence, without Hunt. Everybody in their role stepped up to their role. That includes Bailey, that includes Okasimi, that includes even Cooper when he came in the fourth quarter and knocked down three, Steele early on. The guards, they didn't rely on any particular individual. Mohammed at the beginning, was Cooper at the end, and Jameson took care of the glass. Um, you know, it was as comprehensive a Surrey performance as I can remember, certainly since we've been doing this show. Um, and that's, you know, to be fair, that's on the coach who's kept the group together and worked with the group and is beginning to figure out how to utilize them. And you know, it might be Josh Steele at the beginning, it might be Quinn Cooper at the end, but he's not afraid to throw them in for extended minutes at certain times. But even if they haven't played much already, there doesn't really appear to be a pecking order there. You had, you know, Bailey knocking down shots as well.
They were 30-19 up after the first quarter. Sorry, that is the third time in the last 6 games that Sheffield have given up at least 28 points in the first quarter. Which
Well, I was
is
just going to get to that as well, because Sheffield are going through a real funk, and their funk is, you know, defensive. They're really, you know, for a team that's been so solid defensively for so long, the last 4 or 5 games have been pretty alarming. You know, they've always been together. They've always been in the passing lanes. They've always been diving down and helping on people getting the ball down low. You got nothing easy against Sheffield, and in this game, you know, and in a couple of the previous games, that hasn't been the case. I thought, you know, Surrey early on got shots that they wanted to get. You know, if Wang wanted to get to the rim, he got to the rim. If Lawrence pulled up, he pulled up. Mohammed on the open threes, and Sheffield had we've seen this game with Sheffield so many times before, whereby on the road they play slowly and they're down 15. You know, and they're constantly then at that point trying to kind of claw the game back. You know, they don't have Adekoya at the moment. Dalpesh is playing, but he's not really playing. He's not got
well, it
any
was
sort of
big
rhythm.
minutes for Cook in the first half, and Delpesh barely got on.
Yeah, you know, and so, you know, you're kind of getting into that kind of situation whereby the core of players that Atiba is trusting is reducing in number, which means they all play for a bit longer. Pipkins, I think, is probably hurt. He came off the bench in this game and he doesn't seem to have the same pop to his game. And overall, they just got well beaten this game, you know.
Well, Robinson hit a 3, 6-0 run, 38-23 early in the second quarter. It was never in single figures after that.
Yeah, I mean, so that was, given that it was a trophy game, given that Hunt went out early, um, you know, that's quite alarming for Sheffield that they kind of. I think they got there a little bit late to the gym. I think they were there only about an hour and 10 minutes beforehand. But even then, you should be, you know, you kind of grow into it at some point. And I don't know, they just obviously they're down. Idle Rock isn't there. They just they've got an American spot, I think, so they might try and sign somebody else. But I'm not sure it's somebody else they need. I think it's just a degree of urgency in relation to their defense. I mean, you can play with a defensive identity and you can play close games and you can play at a certain speed. But if that defensive identity kind of filters away, and you're giving up threes to Surrey, you know, we've all talked about that. Then what have you got left? You know, then you're going to struggle. So they're in kind of gut check world at the moment because they should get through this group on the way they've played so far this season, but they might not.
Yeah. Mohammed had 18 points, 16 of them in the first half. Jameson had 18 points, 10 rebounds, 9 of 12 shooting. Wang, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Cook had 17 points, 10 rebounds. Ramsey, 17 points. Nixon, 11 points, 1 of 8 from the floor, but 8 of 8 from the free throw line. They were 38% field goal shooting and 4 of 19 from 3, Sheffield, so that doesn't help. Let's go to Sunday. London Lions 89, Leicester Riders 74. Phillip was back, Matt Morgan was back, Grantham was back in the starters. They've obviously made a new signing in Nwaba, but he was there but not playing. Leicester not really making any shots early on. London didn't quite take advantage of it. They led by 5 or so, but they didn't get out of reach when they perhaps could have.
No, yeah, well, obviously, Bozic took Rob's question at the end of the game,
Yeah.
didn't he? Are you resting anybody? No, we don't rest anybody, not for you in particular. In fact, we're bringing some back. So, I mean, Philip was we last heard was out indefinitely, and now he's back for that game. And they do have this kind of thing with Leicester because Leicester have been their closest competition for the last
Mm,
couple of years. So I do think London make a little bit of a point when they play them. But beyond that, they've also got Teddy Allen just won Player of the Month.
mm,
Teddy Allen hasn't been guarded by anybody like Dante Grantham.
no.
Well, in those 4 games. And so London will have, I'm absolutely sure of taking that as a challenge as well, because when you are as good as they are, you do look for little challenges to keep you kind of ticking over. And one, it's Leicester, but two, hang on, this guy's been lighting up the league,
Mm,
etc. He's had 25 points a game. Well, we're gonna, well, let's see if he can do it against us. I know that's the way top teams will think.
mm,
Um, the story of this game was London just basically had a line to the rim.
mm,
They just got to the rim at will. Any of the guards, be it Sharma, be it Sandy on the offensive rebounding, 6 offensive rebounds
mm,
for him. Um, and despite the fact that London didn't really shoot the ball very well, and Conor Morgan had the first off night I've ever seen, um, Leicester couldn't defend them at the rim, couldn't get anything at the rim to stop them. But the more intriguing kind of subplot was at the other end because um, it's kind of the integration of Allen with the rest of the team.
mm,
And this, I think, for the first time, I think this was probably a difficulty in this game because you got to half time and Holmes had 3 shot attempts. Mackenzie had 1 shot attempt. Thomas, albeit he'd been foul trouble, so he played 5 minutes. He had 2 shot attempts. Allen had 14 shot attempts.
mm,
That's basically, I think it was 14 of 32,
mm,
which would have translated to about 14 of 27 when he was on the court.
mm,
Now that's an issue that has to be an issue because one, it allows London to kind of load up on him. But it's not all on Allen. It's not that he's jacking shots because the difficulty Leicester have is kind of that they don't really have without Pinson, they don't really have a pick and roll creator anymore. They have offense setters, which are Mackenzie and Washington, who are both probably score first guards. So quite a lot of time it ends with the ball that ends up in Allen's hands, and he feels under pressure to make a play. And he knows he has the ability to make plays, but every ability is relative. It's all dependent on who you're coming up against. And if you're
yeah,
coming
yeah,
up
yeah.
against, Grantham and then Sharma at the rim, it's a bit different. So I thought London did, I thought London did a pretty good job. And what it did was it took all the Leicester guys out of that rhythm, and that they weren't really running sets. They became pretty individualized, which is unlike Leicester, in relation to trying to play off their talent,
Mm,
particularly at the beginning of the third quarter when London broke the game open. When Leicester's possessions were basically home saying, "I need to get my shot up. I'm driving to the rim. Thomas, I'm going to shoot a step back 3 because I haven't had my shots yet in the game. I'm trying to get myself into the game." And and then London at the other end, were able to get out on them in transition. So there's still there's still a work in progress, Leicester, but their talent level is so high that I think that's not going to maybe harm them against half the league,
mm,
maybe
mm,
3/4 of the league. The question is what when you come up against Leicester. I know the other question is ensuring that no matter how professional and how good a mentality all the players have, if you have a guy who's just come in who's shooting 25 shots out of 70,
mm,
at the end of the day, this is why basketball is a great is for my money the best sport to be kind of analytical about. Is because it's an individual game wrapped up in a team ethos.
mm,
And ultimately everybody is, as well as playing for the team, they're also playing for themselves. And what you always want to do is to persuade all the players that lifting the team's success will lift their own careers up. But if suddenly they've got a new guy coming in who's, as I say, shooting the ball 14 times to 2, then they're thinking, well, this, I'm not getting my looks here. And then suddenly that kind of breeds a degree of individualism, which isn't beneficial. Oh, it will help them against the weaker teams because they'll be able to score, but not against the stronger teams. So it's not a blame game. It's not a thing saying this because some of these shots are there to take, and he has the skill set to do it. But it was quite noticeable, I thought, in this game that the ball kind of stopped when it got to Allen.
Mm.
You know, if they were running something, it kind of stopped. And you might make a play off the screen and roll or an individual play off the dribble or a step back. But, you know, and against, as I say, 60% of teams in the league, that's going to be fine. Against London, it's not going to get it done, which is why he ended up 6 of 25.
Yeah.
Um,
So it was an 8-0 run around the first quarter break, put them up 31-19. Allen did make a few shots in the second quarter, kept them in touch. But as you touched upon there, Grantham, 3 threes in a row. London scored the first 13 points of the third quarter to 63-40, and that was basically the game done.
Yeah, it was it. Leicester kept going, and they certainly didn't quit. And I thought Leicester's bench was actually quite was more cohesive than the first unit. Bowman made some plays. Idowu was impactful again.
Mm.
But the matchup for them is, I mean, Sharma destroyed them on the glass. Sandy 6 offensive rebounds. I mean, obviously credit to Sandy, played really well, and he's noticeably improved in his execution in the past 4 or 5 weeks. So he deserves a shout out for sticking at it and doing it. But he's come in and crashed from the corner. I think he's got 2 dunks or 2 layups from the corner, and he's got 6 offensive rebounds.
Mm.
I mean, you can't beat London if Kieran Sandy's getting 6 offensive rebounds and putbacks.
Mm.
So they do need. I mean, depending on how much Leicester want to compete as a club, they need another big guy. To be at the next to get to the next level. You've got Mo Walker, who's still at kind of 13, 14 minutes a game, and Sam Ado, who's playing, as I say, pretty darn well. But he's still only 6'7". He's playing 25 minutes a game at the 5 spot. He's going to wear down quick as well. So the question: are they going to use one of those spots and finding an affordable big guy? And I know, because I was involved when Newcastle were looking last year, affordable big guys who are good enough are very hard to find. I mean, you can say, oh well, we'll find a rookie. Okay, well, you're just going to have the same problem you had early on. It take a month, 6 weeks to adapt, and by that time, the season's moved on. It's too late. You find an experienced guy that might help you. For instance, we found French last year, but he wasn't cheap. It's because he's coming out of the G League. So it's kind of the situation that the whole league is in now, which is, how much are we going to mortgage the future for the present? Is it worth it? It's kind of the same with Newcastle with 6 guys. They could deregister one and bring somebody else in for a few games if they wanted to get a bit more depth on the bench. I don't think they've got any inclination to do that. Just going to play it through and see where it goes.
Grantham 4 of 6 for 3 for 16 points. Sharma 13 points, 8 rebounds. Matt Morgan 13 points. Allen 6 of 25, 21.6 rebounds. Idowu 13 points, 10 rebounds. Holmes 11. So let's go to Plymouth City Patriots 88, Caledonia Gladiators 81. No Buttrick, obviously. Onwas was out as well. DeBose was out. Wiley was back for Plymouth. Joe Hart, a couple of threes to cap a 10-0 run by the Patriots. They jumped out to a 12-6 lead.
Basketball's a really cruel mistress at times because Joe played at Newcastle just at Christmas and he couldn't make a shot. He was like 1 of 10, and he had open shots and they weren't going in. And PJ wants him on the court because his shoulders were sagging. PJ's shoulders were sagging when Joe was missing them. He wants him on the court because they're a more cohesive unit with him on the court. He makes the right play, doesn't turn the ball over, and it needs to be guarded. And in this game, he's 4 or 5, he has 17 points, and he's a difference in the game because his shot's going down and he's comfortable. The whole Buttrick thing's even more interesting now, knowing that Onwas wasn't there, isn't it? Really think about it. Onwas wasn't there, but they still didn't even take Buttrick to get some minutes out of him to try and win this game to stay in the competition, even if you're going to let him go the next day. So you wonder if there's been some form of I'm just thinking aloud now. I'm just guessing, thinking aloud of some form of falling out. That might be it, because they've really ended up playing most of that game last night at the end with Moore and Ali Hodgic on together, and they've never done that all season. Because he started Malcolm, but Malcolm struggled. Plymouth are also really, they're probably a little bit less deep than Surrey, but they are less deep than Surrey, which I suppose would mean shallower. But they're also competent. They are a competent basketball team. Levi is probably my favourite under the radar player in the whole
Yeah,
league.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
Josh
yeah,
Steele, but
yeah.
Josh Steele's kind of above the radar a bit now because of he's made the shots he's making, um, and his efficiency. But Levi is just, he doesn't look like he can jump. He doesn't ever seem to bend his knees. He's we got a bit of a pogo stick jump.
Mm,
He does everything you want a player to do to make his team better, apart from the fact he doesn't have any vertical threat, so he kind of can't roll on the lobs and stuff like that.
mm,
But you can see how he's the focal point for a really solid competitive group. And PJ has obviously made the decision that he can get more out of Faulkner coming off the bench than he can out of Dusha coming off the bench.
mm,
So he's given the team to Dusha, which is probably I think a sound move. And then Faulkner's coming off the bench to be his kind of rabbit in the hole, as it were.
mm,
Jack in the box, whatever you want, whatever phrase you want to
mm,
use, to see if he's going to give them a bit of magic, a bit of energy, whatever. But with LVC and Joe, they're a more cohesive unit and a more organized unit. And around that allowed someone like Wiley to go off and play with athleticism and aggression because he knows that Levi's going to do all the little things,
mm,
and then Wiley that would have there. So yeah, they started really well. And in Caledonia, we talked about them really being a happy ship. I mean, I do feel for them. They played Friday night and then they're traveling down to Plymouth. I
mm.
suppose at least they got there.
Yeah,
They're traveling down to
yeah.
Plymouth, on the
They
Sunday, which
they
isn't
got some
great.
no, they got some steals and runouts which kept them in the game a little bit. Caledonia. They're actually only down one at the end of the quarter when Malcolm hit the three. But an 8-0 start by the Patriots had them out to 28-19. And it was a similar story in the second half. Similar
Yeah,
story to the in the second quarter. They got out to 10, then Gladiators a 13-2 run, got ahead. It was tied at 40 at half time.
it was. Then being the third quarter exactly the same again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Plymouth just looked more ready for it, didn't they? They looked a little bit
Mm,
less worn down. I suppose they've done less traveling, I suppose, and they've got the full group there. Um, but you just, in Caledonia, they got a bit out of Kyle Johnson, which was good because they probably needed that. Onwas missing is an issue for them because Malcolm struggled, which meant that and he wasn't willing to play small enough with kind of Johnson at the four, so he ended up having to play with Ollie Hodzic and Moore on the court. That kind of helped get them into a kind of a bully ball, kind of batter me down type of
mm,
thing.
mm.
Levi got his customary awful call. Um, I'm sorry, the guy goes there, he sets a perfectly good screen. I have to, I can't remember if it's third or his fourth foul or whatever.
Mm,
He sets a perfectly good screen, nothing wrong with it at all. And he gets called for an illegal screen, and it's like, no, I think there does need to be a little bit of a presumption on the basis of refs that screens are legitimate unless they're not. I'm getting to that point now whereby I'm seeing times, presumption that screens aren't. And particularly someone like Levi, who is setting screens regularly, and he looked, appropriately aghast at the call.
mm.
Um, and that put a little bit more pressure on Plymouth, but then cometh the ex-Rocks player.
Indeed, it was a 13-0 start to 53-40 for Patriots. Got it down to 5. A Wiley 3 at the start of the fourth quarter. They got it down to 4. Atwood 2 scores 69-61. And it got a little chippy at times. Plymouth had just enough of a cushion, and then Green's threes were the killers at the end.
Well, they were. I mean, and then Plymouth tried to give it away. They played a minute of absolutely crazy basketball.
Yeah,
Faulkner went to try and make a layup when they were up 12.
yeah, yeah.
When he just needed to pull the ball out, and then he turned the ball over, and Caledonia went down the other way, and they didn't look like a team that was used to winning. But I mean, Green was interested. Green's a guy who can make the toughest of shots.
Mm,
He shoots plenty of them, but he can make the toughest of shots. And obviously, he's playing against a team that cut him, and a coach
mm,
that cut him. Never underestimate the revenge
mm,
element in the mind of the professional basketball player. So, making the shot from the top of the key and then eventually the one from the corner as well, they
mm.
were daggers. Um, they just about held on. They should have won the game more comfortably.
Yeah,
If
they
they're
should.
up 12 and if Faulkner holds that, brings that ball out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they run the
yeah,
game out
yeah, yeah.
easily, easily. But those they went for the crowd pleasing. I'm gonna make a layup on Moore. Moore said, "No, you're not."
Mm,
Down the other end, open three, and suddenly game on again. Um, I was happy for Plymouth. There's a lot to like about the way they play. They play them for each other. They're actually far better as a group without Johnson because there's less dribble. The ball moves quicker. They're probably a little bit less explosive as scorers. Um, and they're going to have to play pretty close to the perfect game. They're going to have to get game. They're going to have to get that game out of Wiley. They're
mm,
going to have to get those shots out of Green. Faulkner's only 3 of 13, so maybe they can get a bit more out of him. But they're not an easy out at home. They're not going to be an easy out at any point. And that's all you can ask for really
mm,
in this point in time because what they're 2-15 in the league, something like that. So they could
mm.
be, they could be spiraling, and you don't get the impression that they are.
No.
That's kind of a credit to PJ for keeping that going. That is hard when you're right at the bottom.
Mm.
And that win and the fact they've got a new competition now, and the
Yeah,
reality
yeah, yeah,
is Plymouth and Surrey are both 1-0,
yeah.
and they're playing each other this week, so they're thinking we're going to Birmingham.
Mm,
One more win, and maybe win our home game, then Plymouth win the home game, they're 2-0, maybe they sneak one on the road. Even 2-2 might get them through. Now Caledonia has 2 losses. And they're not looking at Sheffield and Cheshire and Caledonia with any degree of fear at all.
mm, mm,
So that's probably one thing that the trophy has done, which is good. It has elevated the level of play. Frustrates me we still don't have any knockout games, which would elevate it even further.
mm.
But I think it has elevated the jeopardy involved and made the games a bit more interesting.
Wiley, 20.7 rebounds. Dusha, 17 points. That's his best scoring total since the 2nd of April, and 8 assists. Hort, 17 points. That's his best scoring total since the 11th of February, 2022, and
Ooh,
6 assists.
he's been hurt.
Yeah, he has been hurt. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Whelan, 18 points, 3 of 13. Bothwell, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and Poliza, 13 points.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens with Caledonia. See who they bring in. You're getting to that point now whereby what you're 0-2. I mean, they could still qualify, but it's not a.
But they need some help, basically.
They need some help. Basically, and they need to win. I mean, they only lost. They didn't lose by an enormous amount. So,
the
so
the the Group A is Cheshire, Plymouth, Surrey, all 1-0, Sheffield 0-1, and Caledonia 0-2. So obviously Caledonia have to win their last 2 games and get into a preferential tie. Presumably, the only way that works for them is if Cheshire goes 4-0, I think, or Plymouth goes 4-0, one or the other. Um, uh, but again, then it will come down to head-to-head and basket difference and whether
yeah, so
that's
it's
enough.
difficult. But so
Yeah.
now they've got well, yeah, they've just not a happy ship. I mean, you look at that, and I mean, the teams you're concerned for at the moment are crazily Caledonia, who are second in the league, and Cheshire, kind of, because I'm not quite sure that they're what they were. I still think they arrested it a little bit by winning in Caledonia, but thought they could have put the game away a bit earlier. But in Sheffield,
Mm.
it's probably Caledonia and Sheffield and then Cheshire. They're the teams I'm kind of who are most on spiral watch. Put it that way. Back to spiral watch.
I've given the Group A. I might as well give Group B. London 2-0. Leicester and Newcastle 1-1. Manchester and Bristol both 0-1. So there's still a lot to work out for
There's a lot to
for
work
the
out. I
teams
mean,
fighting for second.
yeah, I mean, the last game of the week, last weekend is Newcastle Leicester. You think that's going to be a pretty pivotal game,
Yeah.
even if Bristol beat Newcastle next week, Leicester beat Manchester, which you would think would happen, and London beat Bristol. There could be a 3-way tie there, but in reality, I think if Leicester win it, Leicester could get into the final quite comfortably with the talent level that they have, and the kind of the environment around them, with Newcastle being way down on players and having a European game going on as well in this time. with Bristol already being beaten by Leicester by 20 plus. So they've already won that game. With Manchester being a little bit of a mess, or they were on Friday night. So Leicester win that game. They beat Newcastle, and then they could end up with, Plymouth or Surrey in the semi-finals, which they think they would win. I mean, given that they're currently 77-0 against them 77 games, so there's every shot. That's every shot again into the final. It's crazy, really. But that win against Bristol was a big one for them.
I think you'll find it's 76-0-1.
76-1, my bad. I'm glad I got that close.
No, I don't know what the number is, but it'd be somewhere in that
It's
ballpark. But
close
there's
as
definitely a draw in there
it's
somewhere.
up within the 70s, yeah. So it's there. Yeah, there is an opportunity, I think, there for them. It might just be who's the healthiest at the end.
Yeah, it might be.
Deals with it. Bristol, I think, are going to be good. Bristol with Brad losing, if they get healthy, they're going to be good. They did the right thing by they had a logjam at point guard, and Bradley's good, and he's known to them. So
their question is whether they can be healthy enough to charge in this group, or whether it.
But basically, yeah. I mean, ultimately, they're going to expect to beat Manchester. I think everyone's going to expect to beat Manchester. Doesn't mean they will. And then they got a home game against Newcastle, a home game against London. You kind of write off the London game.
Although I think it's the last game, so it might
London
be.
But even then, 3-0, 3-1's not a guarantee. So we'll see. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We don't know. But I think yeah. So it's a nice little bit of intrigue anyway. It's good to see.
It is indeed. And I am not working next Sunday, so we should be back to a regular Sunday night slot.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
So we'll wrap it up there. Have a great week. Dave and I will be back next week to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.